So, um, I signed up for the PragerU newsletter. What's he called? Dennis Prager. I pronounce it Prager because I assume it's a German name. Translated it literally means someone who's from Prague. Anyway, I I don't know what to make of him. I don't know. I don't know. I do like I do really like the John Burke Society. So I figured, hey, I would like people like Dennis Prager too, Prager. but but I don't know. This quiz is, I mean, this is just one. He sends a lot of emails, and this is just one example, and I feel it's stupid. Are you on the left or the right? See, that's why I like the John Burke Society better, because they had that whole um, video series on basically the origins of modern politics, um, and certain more exclusive societies. Now that might sound a bit like a conspiracy theory, but it was a really well done. They have some really well done videos. Not PragerU. That's my point. Some of the videos of you know, I thought the videos from PragerU would be like that. Would be like well researched historical videos, uh, uncovering certain aspects of politics and where they come from. Uh, like the John Burke Society does. But no, no. I feel like Dennis Prager. I mean, I think he means well, but he just has no clue. And it starts with with questions like this: Are you on the left or the right? My answer: No, no, I'm not. They don't even give you the op. That's the problem I have with that, and that's the problem I have with a lot of people, especially Americans. They don't even give you the option to not be either of these things. And I'm sure in this quiz they won't have an option for this either. It's either you're on the left. That's what at the end of the day the quiz will conclude. Either I'm on the left or the right. There is no other option. But I don't want to be either of these things. I'm sure they're gonna shove me into one of these categories, but I don't want to be either. Yeah, so that's uh, that's a very prominent problem nowadays, because of it actually, and the videos from the John Burke Society actually expose that very well. Um, it all starts with Hegel, right? The Hegelian dialectic, and that's of course also what Marxism is based on. The whole I reject the whole assumption. I reject the Hegelian dialectic. Um, because in the Hegelian dialectic, you always have two extremes, two conflicts, like left and right? They're just but neither of them is good, and they want to create conflict between two extremes, and they think that conflict is good, and that through that conflict uh, they can um, they can make societal progress. I disagree with that whole assumption, and of course, uh, being left and right corresponds to that. It corresponds with Hegelian dialectics, and actually it actually corresponds to the Hegelians themselves, because, of course, as I'm sure you know if you know anything about history, after Hegel died, there were these two factions, again corresponding to the Hegelian dialectics. There were the young Hegelians and the old Hegelians. And basically, it's a bit more complicated than that, but to boil it down, basically, the young Hegelians became what what was later called the Marxists, or the leftists, if you want, and the old Hegelians uh, became what was later called right-winged extremists, or maybe the people on the right in general. In my humble opinion, they're not conservatives. They paint themselves as conservatives, but old Hegelians are not the same as conservatives, even though they might even claim to be conservatives. So they actually correspond to right wingers, which, in my humble opinion, is not the same as being conservative, because both right winged extremists as well as Hegelians in general, whether they be young or old, are actually opposed to conservatives. It's just that the young Hegelians call for outright revolution, so they correspond to the Marxists, and the old Hegelians, well, they also aim for revolution, and they also want to establish everything. They want to no, they want to abolish. The old Hegelians also want to abolish all previously existing societal conditions, as Marx put it. So they actually agree with Marx as well. The old Hegelians agree with Marx. They also want to, they also want a revolution and abolish the old state of society, and want to abolish everything that's conservative. So they're actually also against conservatives, but they just disagree with the young Hegelians in the way they do it. The young Hegelians want outright violent revolution, and the old Hegelians, they want to keep the the state and the previously existing religions and the previously existing social structures. They want to preserve them on the surface, but actually change them from within. So in both cases, the goal is to actually abolish them in one way or the other, and create a completely new state of society. So in my humble opinion, they're both the same. They're both Hegelians. They both have the same goals that Hegel and Marx have. So I disagree with both of them. So I'm neither on the left or the right, because in my humble opinion, the left corresponds with the young Hegelians, the right corresponds with the old Hegelians, and I disagree with Hegel altogether. So, but let's do the stupid quiz. When it comes to issues like business and regulation, healthcare, taxes, education, and personal freedom, how much should the government be involved? Where do you stand on the ideological divide? Take this quiz to find out. Oh dear. Question 1. Do you think those who make more money should pay a higher percentage of their income tax? That's actually one of the demands in the manifesto of the Communist Party. That's actually what it's called. People in America call it like the Communist Manifesto, but that's not the title. The title of Marx's book is Karl Marx, das Manifest der Kommunistischen Partei. The Manifesto of the Communist Party. It's not called the Communist Manifesto, it's called the Manifesto of the Communist Party. I don't know why they translated it differently, but yeah. So, but that's actually one of the demands in the manifesto of the Communist Party. And while I disagree with Marx, this is a difficult question to answer, because while I disagree with Marx and with the Hegelians in general, I regard Marx as a young Hegelian, by the way. But yeah, I disagree with them in general. But the way the question is worded, well, do you think those who make more money should pay a higher percentage of the income tax? That basically boils down to, to a question of welfare and healthcare, and I'm not against that. And as I explained in many of my previous videos, and as I'm going to explain in many of my upcoming videos, social welfare is not the same as socialism. In East Germany, we truly had socialism, but we had no social welfare at all. If if you didn't want to work, they didn't give you welfare at all. They put you in prison. And I actually know some people who were put into prison. And they didn't it wasn't even that they refused to work. It was just that because what socialism actually is a state controlled economy. So there is no in actual socialism, there is no private company. The only company that can give you a job is the state. The state has a monopoly on the economy and on the economy itself. So it also has, of course, a monopoly on on employment because there are no private companies. There's only the state. Only the state can employ you, and the state will employ you, but well, the state will kind of tell you what kind of work you should do. And well, maybe you don't like that kind of work and would like to do something else. Well, too bad. And that was exactly the issue. These people that I actually know personally that were put in prison, they didn't they didn't refuse to work in and of itself. They just wanted to have a different job than a job the state assigned to them. So, but that was seen as them refusing to work, and so they were put in prison. Yeah. So much for social welfare in an actual socialist country. There will not be any social welfare in an actual socialist country. They only use it. Socialists only advocate for social welfare in capitalist countries because if there's an excessive amount of social welfare, it destabilizes the economy. Then the socialists will come along and say, "Oh, this proves the failure of capitalism," you know. But in reality, it was actually because they demanded excessive social welfare all the time. But of course, when the economy eventually collapses, they won't admit that. They will say, "Oh, it was the failure of capitalism," and then they will paint socialism as the only way out. So socialists only use social welfare as a means to destroy uh, the previously existing capitalist economy, and then paint socialism as the only solution once the economy has collapsed. So, but that said, I'm not against social welfare. Um, I'm only against it if it's excessive. So, since this question isn't really about excessive social welfare, I I have to answer yes, because I'm not against social welfare in and of itself. Question 2. Do you support restrictions on free speech in order to combat hate speech? This is, again, one of those loaded questions that actually shouldn't be asked in the first place. Um, you know, socialists, whether they be mainstream socialists or national socialists, they will always exploit free speech to push hate speech and to discriminate against their political enemies. And then the reaction, of course, is, well, we have to restrict free speech because the extremists are taking advantage of free speech. Well, but if the extremists wouldn't take advantage of free speech in the first place, you wouldn't have to restrict free speech, would you? Right? So that question only arises if you have extremists that take advantage of free speech. But of course, nowadays we have a lot of extremists that take advantage of free speech. So I feel sadly, because of that, I have to answer yes. Do you believe the government should be as small as possible in order to maximize the freedom of the individual? Ha. Again, the way the question is worded, it's um, difficult. I don't really want to say yes or no to that question. At least not the way it's worded. But of course, I don't necessarily support big government. I'm not a supporter of big government. But the way the question is worded, it's difficult. It's difficult to give an answer. But if I have to give an answer, and yeah, obviously I have to give an answer. I have to say yes on this one, I guess. Question 4. Do you believe healthcare is a human right and should be provided to every citizen by the government? Yes, yes, yes. Of course, as I already explained, if it's excessive, if there is excessive healthcare and excessive welfare, then it causes problems, right? Because you know, products and services don't grow on trees, right? Uh, well, okay, I guess apples do, but you still need someone to actually, pick them. Um, um, so they are not free. So you can't make it. You can't make something that takes an effort free indefinitely, because then either the people who provide that service will be exploited or the economy will collapse. Um, so that just doesn't work if it's done to an extreme. But the question is not, are you against excessive welfare? And of course, I'm against excessive welfare. But um, but when it comes to like basic health care, of course I'm not against that. Of course, if someone um, is in serious need of medical attention, he should get medical attention, right? Even if he can't pay for it, I mean, you can't let someone die just because he can't afford the doctor, right? So of course I'm not against healthcare in and of itself. Do you believe him? So yes, I do believe, uh, I as long as it's not excessive, you know, I do believe it should be a human right. Yes. Question 5. Do you support school choice? Oh, I'm going to end up being a leftist, aren't I? Ah, great. I took a similar quiz. It really depends on the way the questions are worded. I took a similar quiz and it concluded that I was a right winged extremist. This is probably going to conclude that I'm a left winged extremist. Great, great, great. I mean, not great, not great. But it really depends on the way the questions are worded, because these questions are always worded in a stupid manner. It always concludes that I'm 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 either one of the other, but I'm really trying to be neither. But the way the questions are worded, it doesn't allow for that. Do you support school choice, the idea that parents should have the ability to send their kids to whatever school they choose, that their tax dollars should follow their child, not the other way around? Um, well, I don't know. I mean, don't don't people already have a choice? I mean, in America, parents even have yet another choice that we in Germany don't have. Because in Germany, there was a certain failed Austrian painter who made a new law that made it illegal to be homeschooled. So thanks to that guy, um, we don't have the option of being homeschooled. But in America, you even have the option of being homeschooled, and yet you still complain about not having enough options. And on top of that, also, just like here in Germany, there is of course the option of a private school. So if you're not satisfied with public schools, and I mean, public schools are all the same anyway. I mean, it's not like there's going to be a big difference between public school A and public school B, right? It's pretty much, it's the same public school. It doesn't really matter, other than maybe location, right? But usually you get assigned the public school that is closest to you anyway, right? So yeah, so I feel it doesn't matter because one public school isn't too much different from another public school. If you really want something else for your kid, well, send him to a private school, or homeschool him, since you even have that option in America. So, do you support school choice, the idea that parents should have the ability to send their kids to whatever school they choose? Well, so I guess under these circumstances, I'm going to say no. It's difficult. To me, it's not a yes or no question, but under these circumstances, I mean, if you're not satisfied with public school, just send your kid to a private school. Do you think privatized healthcare promotes competition between healthcare providers and drives down medical costs? Well, no, certainly not here in Germany. I mean, we do have private healthcare providers, but they're prohibitively expensive, so I'm going to say no. Do you trust the government to properly educate young people? Well, since I just explained who, I just explained who had the brilliant idea of making public school in Germany mandatory. I have to say that I don't trust the government to properly educate young people. No, and I wish there was an option of homeschooling your children here in Germany. Do you believe that property rights are necessary to live in a free society? Again, the way it's worded, I almost have to disagree with it, even though in principle, I would kind of agree with it. It's just the way it's worded. Of course, I'm all for property rights, but are they necessary to live in a free society? They're certainly helpful. I am all for property rights, and I feel that they are helpful in creating a free society. And they might even be very important for a free society. But are they absolutely necessary? They're certainly helpful, but necessary, the way it's worded, it's. But since I have to choose one or the other, I guess I'm gonna have to say yes. But even though I don't feel that they're absolutely necessary for a free society, but they're certainly helpful for having a free society. So, do you support the redistribution of wealth from the rich to the poor to help lift poor people out of poverty? Well, that's the same question as the other one. It basically boils down to: are you against health? Are you against free healthcare? And are you against welfare? And I already explained that I'm not against these things, as long as they're not done to an extreme. So yes, I guess I have to say that I support giving welfare to the needy, to the ones who are poor and who need it. Yeah, I'm not against that as long as it's not done to an extreme. Dennis Prager is gonna think I'm a left wing extremist, isn't he? Do you think government regulations of businesses should be as small and limited as possible? Again, the way it's worded, Do you think government regulation of businesses should be as small and limited as possible? Well, there certainly has to be some regulation, right? But yeah, I do agree that it should be limited. I just don't like the way it's worded, but um, yeah. Ready to find out where you stand on the ideological divide. You're on the left. Yeah. I'm not. Your questions are worded stupidly. When it comes to the political divide in this country, there are two primary sides, the left and the right. See, I disagree with that whole assumption. I feel left and right are both wrong, and they're both Hegelians, and I disagree with the whole thing. The left believes the government should be the most powerful force in shaping a society. Well, if you would have asked me that, I would have certainly disagreed with that. I don't agree with that statement at all. I don't believe the government should be the most powerful force in shaping a society. I don't believe that at all. But that's not what your question said. You asked completely different questions, yet you come to that conclusion. And I don't agree with that conclusion at all, because that's not what you asked. The right believes the government's role in society should be kept as limited as possible. Actually, that's not even a good summary of what the right believes, but well, obviously that's what he believes. Um, but actually, and that's not even, again, that's not what the questions were regarding of. That's not what the questions were about, because actually with that statement I actually agree. But obviously that's not what the right actually believes, because as you can see, the the test has me on the left. But I actually agree with that statement. Yeah, I do believe that the government's role in society should be kept as limited as possible. But if that was truly what the right actually believed, you'd have me on the right, not the left. So, yeah, so your questions and your conclusions don't align at all. Um, Without the belief in an ever expanding government, there is no left. Without a belief in limited government, there is no right. Um, that's not what the classical Hegelian right believes. Um, that's the whole point, right? Um, Actually, the classical left, the Marxists, the Hegelian Marxists, the young Hegelians, what later became the Marxists, their whole point is to start a violent revolution and abolish the government. So they're against the government. The left is against the government. I mean, at least against the against hmm, against the current government. Again, of course, they're not against against communism or socialism as a government, but they're against the current government, whatever government it is that that currently exists in a society before there is a communist revolution. So they are against that government. And actually, the right, and that's the whole difference between, like I explained, that's the whole difference between the young Hegelians and the old Hegelians. That's why we even have left and right. They don't, they're both Hegelians. So they don't disagree in their goal. They only disagree in the method of achieving that goal. So basically, they both want a revolution and want to establish their form of socialism. The mainstream socialists, the young Hegelians, They want to establish mainstream socialism, and the old Hegelians, um, what later became the right, and the extreme right, not the conservatives, and eventually even became the National Socialists. Well, they also want socialism. Of course, they want National Socialism, right? But in both cases, they want to establish the previous government. They want to abolish the previous government and establish their form of socialism. Um, yeah. So his whole assumption about the whole thing is incorrect. So, but anyway, let's see next. Okay, I'm on the left. So what's next for me? I'm not on the left, but he thinks I'm on the left. Okay. Well, why would I? Okay, it just tells me to give money to Dennis Prager. Um, Now, why would I do that? I mean, especially since you just labeled me as a leftist and as someone who disagrees with you. So why would I give you money? It makes no sense.